Hey guys, welcome back to How to Build Your Own Cyber Lab at Home with Kyle Slozak. And in this lecture, we're going to talk about the equipment needs if you decide you want to build a physical lab. And, so physical labs are great, right? They're easy to set up. Things you need to think about are you're going to need to have some workstations. Maybe that's, a bunch of old desktops you've got, or some laptops, or maybe you've got even servers. What I put here, and I think this is great, old computers, they work for a physical lab setup. If you're anything like me, you've probably got a bunch of old laptops or a bunch of old desktops lying around. Go ahead and repurpose those. Pull them down, dust them off, see if the equipment still works, and install some operating systems on the machines. They're great because you don't need, unlike virtual, right, where you're sharing the resources, you may not necessarily need to have such a beefy machine to run a single operating system. If you're going to be running some Linux instances, they don't really need a whole lot of resources. They don't need a very fast processor, a lot of memory, a big hard drive space. So you can run several things, as long as you have a couple of different old pieces of hardware. One thing you're going to need for a physical lab that you don't need for a virtual lab is some networking equipment. Now you can go out and buy a couple of cheap switches, or you can get a Soho router, and those are great. And but you need to be able to remember that do the machines that you have wireless, or are you going to need to get a bunch of Cat5 cabling, or do the systems even have network cards? Or you need to go out and buy network cards. So those are all things to think about when you're planning out that physical lab. And so the last thing I have in this lecture is I want to talk about internet isolation. I want to spend a couple of minutes on this because I think it's really important. If you're going to be building this lab to do any type of cyber testing, and that could be using malicious software, using hacking software for learning, or maybe you're looking at samples of malware. You've got to think about, do you want that connected to the internet? Do you want those machines to have internet connectivity? Malware tends to beacon back out to the internet, and it's monitored on several levels. So maybe you want to just have it completely isolated from the network and have it be its own LAN. Well, if that's the case, then you're going to need some services. You're probably going to need some sort of DNS or DHCP, some sort of networking services that are normally prevalent on a internet connected network. The other thing that we want to talk about is network isolation. Now, say you have decided you want it to have network access, or internet access. I think that's great. That's smart. But think about: do you want your lab connected to the same network that your home machines are on? Do you want to be looking at samples of malware on the same network that you have your machines that you connect to your bank and check your bank account balance, or do your taxes on? So you probably want to have some sort of network isolation within this lab setup. And that can be done in a couple of ways. You can buy a border router, some sort of small office, home office, router, and then you basically set off two networks off of that. And those could be two different routers, one for your lab and one for your home network. And a lot of times these new routers have the ability to do that type of network isolation. You may only need to buy one if you've got an advanced router that will do network isolation. It'll broadcast two SSIDs for two different networks. You can VLAN out the ports on the physical machine, and then have switches going into those ports. Say, this is my lab network, and here's the home network. So think about how you want to set that up, and before you actually start building this lab. So that's it for equipment needs for physical labs. We'll see you in the next lecture.